Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. This is Julie Bruns, and you are about to be inspired. I am so excited to share my conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who figured out how to be happy, peaceful, and content doing work they love and making the world a better place so that you can see what's possible for your life. I can't wait to hear what you think. Send me an email and let me know one thing you're taking away from this episode. And never forget, anything really is possible. So welcome, everyone. My guest this week is Jacqueline Kerr. And Jacqueline and I connected through my podcast. She listened to my podcast with Jen Lim, and which I released earlier this year, which is really one of my favorite ones, Jacqueline. I loved her energy, and I was really happy I reached out to her. So I'm glad that spoke to you. So you connected with me and said, I'd love to be on your podcast, and you do work with burnout and companies and helping people to, I guess, get healthier with that, get away from burnout. And so I'm excited to talk to you, and I'm happy to jump in right in.
Thank you so much for having me. And I was listening to your podcast again this morning, and it's just so great to have the conversations that you're having with people. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk about your career. So tell people what you do now. And did you always see yourself with the career you have now?
So now I'm trying to prevent burnout, particularly in working mums. I see this very much as an equity issue. So did I always want to change the world? Yes, from when I was very little. In fact, my background, I was in boarding school, and 1 year in boarding school in the UK, we did an election because they were having an election for prime minister that we have there. And so I stood up for election. We could be a prime minister for the day at our school if we did that. And so all these people were actually representing real political parties. And I said, well, if I'm going to stand on a platform, it's going to be no school rules for the day.
Oh
so
God.
Of course I won.
Of course.
And so, yeah, I mean, I've always, wanted to disrupt the status quo in some ways. And I feel that very much at the moment. But I haven't always been here. So I started out in advertising as a career, and then actually moved into public health because I really wanted to use persuasive messaging to help people with their health rather than, say, sell products to them. But I got the bug of research when I actually was doing a master's in exercise and health science. I went on to do a PhD and came to the US 18 years ago now for a postdoc. And I basically was a full professor, mostly doing research, some teaching. And my job was to help build more healthy communities in whatever way that could be, through workplaces, schools, parks, retirement communities, senior centers. And that was my passion. And I was very successful at it. I was bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars from the National Institutes of Health. I'm actually in the top 1% of most cited scientists worldwide. But as a mom and a leader in this very competitive medical research environment, I burned out. And so that's how now it's been 4 years now, and it took me a while to understand that what I experienced was burnout. And in this recovery process to say, I don't want other capable moms like myself to go through this process. And so I definitely see, yes, it's an individual journey, but it's also a journey that we need to change in the organizations we work for. Burnout is not just an individual problem.
No, and it's happening. It's happening everywhere. Obviously, it's happening in the corporate world. It's happening in education, and it's just
and healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah. I love that your work was with trying to keep people healthy and get them healthier instead of just like fixing their sicknesses, which I was at the doctor's office recently for an annual checkup, and I was like, this everywhere around me. Like this is all about. This is not healthcare. This is sick care. This is not, and not to get political, but it kind of hit me in a different way this year. I don't know why. I was like, you're not making sure I'm healthy. You're making sure, see if I'm sick. You're trying to see if I'm sick so that you can give me something else. It's going to make more money or whatever. Right. I'm like, no, it's like, it's not, I don't know, it struck me a little different this year, and um, I don't like the way that that's going. I worked in healthcare IT for a long time too, and it's like everyone's getting burnt out. And there's lots of good things COVID's done, in my opinion. And one of the good things it's done is woken us up to our mental health, to our physical health, and all the other things we need. And it kept people from getting burnt out probably faster than they would have had COVID not happened. And it shook people up a little bit and said, all right, how do I want to balance my day and spend my day instead of just this work with your head down like you were doing? And then all of a sudden looking up and saying, I don't feel so great. It's like, oh, because we're all told that we just should put our heads down and work and then not take care of ourselves. And now everyone's like, how are you taking care of yourself? Now mental health is like this, not this taboo anymore. It's just like, how are you balancing your day, and how are you getting outside and getting fresh air and all those little things that help people stay healthy that no one ever would talk about before. So I love that that's the work you're doing. And then I love that now you're expanding it and saying, okay, how can I help moms so this doesn't happen to all moms, because it does happen on some level. Every mom I've ever known, to some regard, whether they're working or not, they get burned out because they don't take care of themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because yes, we suddenly did reframe and say what's important in life, and can we let go of some of these ridiculous expectations, because they were kind of taken away from us, all the extracurricular activities, and we went, oh, they're not helping that much. But also it made work and home absolutely now intertwined. And so that's why it's so important that companies recognize the roles that mothers play in the world, beyond the work, and actually all the skills we have from being a mother we bring to work. So I mean, it's an opportunity and it's also a crisis. So let's not let it go to waste.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes, don't let it go to waste, for sure. Okay, so when you were really successful in your role as, keeping these companies and their employees healthy, and all these different centers you worked for to promote health, and you were super successful at it. What was keeping you successful then? And what were you doing along the way to remain peaceful and happy as you were building your success? And then also, like, what is it now that you're doing that's different or that's better than what you were doing when you were burning out?
Right. Oh my goodness, sheer grit, willpower. I am the hardest worker in the whole wide world. That was what made me successful. And that's really a part of my shame in this process, because when I had female students and faculty come to me and explain that they were struggling with something, for example, a man's voice was being heard, or they couldn't make it to every single academic conference, my answer to them as well was, work harder. That's the option. That's what's worked for me. And so I'm now so ashamed of that advice, because yes, you can work really hard and you can get there, and you can believe that mantra, as so many of us did, is that's how we will succeed as women, and we do. But once we get there, there's so many examples where we get to these leadership positions and then we are exhausted, and changing the playing field is so hard at that point in time. And also, it's so hard to change. So actually going from saying I'm the hardest working person in the world, and I still have to monitor that hard work drive, the biggest thing I did is stop suppressing how I felt, suppressing my stress. I mean, I was very good at managing my stress by never letting it affect me. And then when I did actually burn out, and I actually experienced episodes of suicide ideation, so I ended up having to take a leave of absence and reset my fight-flight system, because I was in total fight-flight. And then when I went back to work after 3 months of doing that, the stress hit me like a truck. It had never been there before, because I had never allowed it to be. I had just pushed it down. And so that pushing away stress and that pushing away emotions, pushing away my needs, those were all things that I didn't admit to and that I didn't communicate. So of course, nobody knew what I was going through. So now I do that totally different. I express my emotions and I express my needs. And it helps so much. It helps in my family and it helps in my work. So it's a huge difference for me.
And it's so important that you're calling attention to it, and that you're sharing your lessons, and then saying how it can be different with companies in future, with women and men too, of course. But because it's not we're taught, I was taught the same way, just work hard and then everything will work out. And if that's all you're thinking about and that's all you're doing, when everything's not working out exactly how you want it, you're like, oh, I'll just work harder. That must be I just didn't work hard enough. I'll just do this. It's like, no, that's not it. There's all these other components of it. And I think especially women, we're taught to suppress the feelings, to not say what you need or want, because then it's going to look weak, or someone's going to, throw it back in your face or whatever it is. And we're competing with men for a seat at the table and all those other things. And so we're just like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. And I'm like, where I'm just like, no, that's not working for me, or I have a problem with this, or I've relaxed about some other things that used to be super important to me. And then the other things that are newly important to me, I have no problem speaking up about and not apologizing for. And I think that's just wisdom and age too. Not, obviously you can do this when you're younger, but you realize as you get older, like there's only so much time and there's only so many moments you can do that. And it's just as important as someone else sitting in the room. And it's the way you go about it. You learn how to go about it. You learn that it's important, and you kind of start giving yourself permission, even though you were really the only one denying it some other time. We were taught this, but we like you said, we let the lesson in, and we're like, okay, we're just going to do it that way. And there weren't. My husband always reminds me of that there weren't a lot of people standing around going, "You better do this." I was doing that to myself because I was taught that this is the way to do it.
And then, we do. Yeah. But I think it is also really important to recognize that social messaging that we have received. And actually in the workplace, for example, women are penalized if they say no. Yeah. And women are taking on the majority of the office housework. Yeah. And so nobody's saying, oh yeah, make sure we distribute this fairly. Yeah. So I think we can end up blaming ourselves. And I think that's also what happens with burnout, in terms of people then do everything they can to prevent burnout, but yet they're still experiencing it. So they think there's something wrong with me, versus actually saying, okay, part of this is the system, because the conditions that lead to burnout are overwork, of course, but it's also lack of autonomy. It's also lack of reward, injustice, lack of collegiality. And those things particularly affect mums when we're considered not committed to our careers and therefore not given the opportunity nor the pay. I mean, these are definitely things that we don't realize are affecting us, but they're very much there and frame our experience of success and feelings of failure.
For sure. What do you say to women now, younger moms and older moms in the workforce? What do you say to them when they ask you for advice? Like they're searching for a meaningful career. They don't want to be burned out. They want to have a family, and they want to have their cake and eat it too, and have a family and a career. What advice do you give them?
And that's so interesting, because even recently, a lady that spoke with me was saying she was going to be doing motherhood as choice. So being a single mom and using that village of support to support her. And she was like, what can I do? So we were talking about policies and model language that her, for example, university could use, because when she went to them, she was being so prepared about this process. She really wanted her university to support her. So she was like, they have no idea what I need. What do I need?
Yeah, how are they supposed to? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So again, I think there's partly that is what is the language, what is the policies that are going to be supportive, but to individual people who are in this state of burnout, back to the office housework, back to potentially volunteering and all these extracurricular activities. My first advice to people is, when they are in this state of burnout, is to stop doing anything that they're not being valued for. Because our time is so valuable, and if we don't appreciate it and we're giving it away for free, that's what leads us to be in a state of burnout. And it's really, that's the thing we have to get back control of again, and you can do that through tracking whether you are saying yes all the time. So you start to track your yes and no's, and then suddenly realize, I'm saying yes and nobody even asked me to, like you shared, but also then like your whole list of activities you're doing, and then saying, okay, which of these am I actually doing out of love and enjoyment versus obligation. So we really have to get a handle first on just stopping the flow of energy out of ourselves in unrewarded ways. And then we can take time to breathe and start to say, okay, what is the purpose I want to have? And again, by looking at those activities we do and actually saying, which ones am I enjoying most? That starts to get us in the right direction. And even within a company, job crafting, for example, is related to greater job satisfaction. So it's a great way to start rather than running out of the building in somewhat as I did with your hair on fire. Take the time to say, can I craft a position here based on what I do like to do, based on when I do feel flow, so that I can move forward and find purpose. But I have lots of tools, different burnout profiles, and for each type of different profile, different solutions, because some people are looking for purpose in their work. Other people, it's because they're not being paid well. Other people, it's because they're having so much performance pressure. Others, because they're people pleasers. There's so many reasons that we burn out, that we do need different solutions depending on where you're coming from.
It's true, but I love your overall advice. It's basically what all the things you were listing off is like being what I'm hearing and concluding is be your own advocate. And because I think we're always looking, especially as we're growing in our careers and we're new to our careers or in our mid-level careers, like we're looking to our managers and senior leadership to say, what we should be doing and getting their approval and all that other stuff. But like you said, they're not asking you questions about how it's going, and you're just putting all the onus on yourself to perform or just you're making assumptions. You could be miserable for not a very good reason, And if you went to them and said, "Hey, here's what I was thinking. What do you think?" Whenever I've done that in my career, I've almost always had a good result because they're like, "Oh, okay, we'd like to have that conversation." But if you're not bringing it to anyone's attention or telling people what you want, they can't know. They can't read your mind. Like that's a classic man-woman, relationship thing that we'd like them to be able to read our minds, but it's not fair to expect it. It's not fair to expect our bosses or our team to be able to read our minds either. You have to get comfortable telling people what's important to you and why in a professional way, of course. And then knowing, like you said, the reason that it's important to you and the reason you're saying yes or no, or you feel obligated. When I say yes, it's because I'm excited to do it. And it's an honor to do it, or, I'm not doing it really for any rewards. And I'm in a place in my career where they're important, but they're not as important as they were probably 10 years ago. I wanted a pat on the back, and now it's like, no, I'm doing it because it's bringing me joy, and that's going to have its own rewards. Fine. But I think that we need to, I feel like if I'm counseling younger, like students and younger people in the work profession, in the professional world, this is a big, big lesson that's going to help you in your entire career, whether you want to be a mom later or not. You need to know how to do this in your personal life and your professional life. And the sooner you learn how to do it, the better off you're going to be, and the happier you're going to be, right? And the less likely you're going to be able you're going to be burning out because you're going to have what you need. Yeah.
And you can do it in a way, we can frame it, for example, as an impact analysis. I have done an impact analysis of my tasks. I think these ones are impacting our company the most. I think these ones are not. Do you agree? And that's where it's like you're not coming in sort of complaining about the work you don't like or whatever. And again, I think that's the other thing to remember is what you like somebody else doesn't like, but what you don't like somebody else does like. So again, letting go of that feeling that you do have to do every single task and really focusing on the ones that are most impactful for your company and that you can do your best at.
I love that question too. Do you agree? Because you're not challenging anyone. You're not confronting anything. You're saying, here's what I did. I did this analysis. I reviewed this. I evaluated this. Do you agree? Here's what I found. Do you agree? Are you seeing the same trend I am, or whatever it is? That's a great way of opening up the conversation, not being confrontational, and then not saying you really don't even have any expectations. You're just saying, here's what I've been noticing. And then you're having an ongoing conversation instead of a one-time confrontation or one-time meeting where it's going to be a difficult conversation. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be this other way. That's a cool way of looking at it. I like that.
Great.
Okay. So Jacqueline, is there anything else you wish you'd learned? Is there anything at all you wish you'd learned earlier in your life or career? I have a feeling I know the answer to this now that I've talked a little bit.
We'll see if it aligns. So yeah, I think the biggest thing that I had wished I had learned was essentially, and it's such a big topic and phrase really, is emotional intelligence. I really wish I had developed that younger. And obviously in an English boarding school, you're not going to, right? I mean, it's like follow the rules, and self-love or any sort of love is not part of it. But that's what I'm really trying to teach my kids, is emotional intelligence, so that they understand their emotions, they understand how to manage them, how to use them, how to recognize what they need. I remember this book that I read was the book you wish your parents had read. It was by an English author as well. And she was basically saying, unless you let your children express their emotions, they won't know what they want, and they won't be able to express their needs. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is essential. That's what was missing in my, childhood and adulthood, right? So I think that's the thing, is really getting to know what our needs are, so that we can ask for them. Because suppressing them, they just come out through resentment. And actually, resentment is a fantastic symptom for people to look out for burnout. Once you start to feel resentment and then rumination, you're going into this cycle of burnout. And so it's so important.
I love that you are teaching your kids that, from all the work that you've done and what you've learned with your own life, because I agree, it's not, I think also too, as when I was a younger parent, it's like, just your kids, I knew this instinctively was not the right way to parent. So I did not do this with my kids. So it was, understood and encouraged to just say, like, just be quiet, or just stop crying because it's stressful, and you're getting angry, but that's stressful for me. We're in the grocery store. How am I going to, like, you can't do that, because then I'm stressed out. And it's like, no, there are ways around it without saying, like, let them have a temper tantrum. You could say, you seem so upset. What's going on? Is it really about this? Like, it's just about asking questions. But I don't think we're taught enough as parents. Obviously, there's lots of parenting books, but we're not really encouraged to read them, I don't think, growing as young parents, or we don't have time to read them. And there's all these little ways with questions that you can really get past, helping encourage them. And like you said, and then you're setting them up for so much success, for relationships, for school, for work. They can communicate what they need so much easier, and it's just going to save them so much heartache, which is not necessarily the only goal, but at least it's like you can advocate for yourself early, and you can do it in a way that's going to be accepting and not a problem, instead of just like, be quiet and just stuff that down. Because you said, eventually everything's going to come out. It's going to come up, it's going to come out, and probably not in the way that you want it to if you don't address it. So just address it.
And I think that too is so important. I think I got that message so much, and maybe it is also, my personality tendency as well, is just wanting to help others, but really reminding my daughter in particular, but also my son, is, hey, I really want you to look out for others, and I really want you to help others, as long as you're helping yourself too. And so just reminding them of that. So whereas I don't think, never was that message to me around, help yourself too.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be both. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one final question for you. What's one new thing you're taking away from our conversation today? It can be anything you discovered, thought about, said. One new thing you're taking away.
Yeah, that's such a challenging question. I think essentially, part of this is reflecting on how much growth we can have, right? I'm 50 this year, and I had my burnout 4 years ago, and that's the thing. I think we can always grow, and we can always learn, and I think that's the thing. Quite often I'm asked by women going through burnout, am I going to get through this, and am I ever going to be the same person again? And that's the thing. I don't think we want to be the same person again. And so it's accepting that actually the person we're going to become is someone that's going to look after ourselves more. And I still have those times where I'm like, God, I wish I was that invincible super mom again, because then I wouldn't have to feel all this and worry about all this. But actually, it wasn't the pathway. I mean, it was, you can be successful in that way for a certain amount of time. So I think that's the thing, really, reflecting on this conversation, is is how much I have grown and how much there is room to grow, no matter what age we are. And actually these really difficult times in our lives are opportunities to put ourselves back together with a different puzzle pattern, with a different formula. And that's very much what I've experienced. So again, I know when women are going through this, they are feeling that, will I ever get through it? And will I ever be the same person again? So, I really feel like we don't want to be that person anymore. And when we can accept that and really accept the strengths of, appreciating our needs and asking for them, then we can really get on. And I do think we will, in some ways, still have these personality tendencies and still have these barriers in the workplace that make us prone to burnout. So that's really important, is finding those ways through detecting those emotions. Like where does stress sit in my body? Where does situations where I can feel it coming on, even though maybe that's not the situation that's stressing me. So for example, when I pick up my kids from school, on that drive to pick them up, that's when I feel my stress. The drive isn't stressful, but all the stress of the day I feel in my chest. So again, I start to have these tools to help me recognize it earlier. And again, resentment is such a great alert for us all to go, oh, I'm falling into that. What's going on? So knowing those triggers and feelings ahead of time, because they're still going to be there. It's so hard to be a mom in modern society. So
of course. I love that. It's we always can learn and we always can grow. I love what you said. And I think what I'm taking away the most is that when you said, you don't want to go back to what you were doing. If you go back to what you're doing, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be sick, or you're going to get sick, or you're going to you're not going to be at your best, and you're not going to be thriving. So you're learning and growing so that you can be better and feel better and thriving. That's so you can go back to doing what you were doing before, which wasn't working for you, which is why they're probably talking to you to begin with. So why would you go back to that? Yeah, I love that lesson. Yeah. How can people, so I think you have a TED Talk, right? How can people learn about your work and get involved with what you're doing or consult with you?
Great. Yes. The best place is on my website at drjacquelinekerr.com. You can access my podcast, Overcoming Working Mom Burnout, there, and my TEDx talk, which is How to Stop Burnout Before It Starts.
Oh, I love that your podcast is all about helping moms to not burn out. So I hope that people will listen to that and get some good. I wish I would have had that. Well, I had a good balance because I read a lot of books, and I'm a big learner. So I was doing a lot of that early on, but I know that moms don't typically have time for that. So it's awesome that there's podcasts to help you when you're doing your errands and all the other stuff that moms do on top of working, that is sitting with a book for a whole weekend. So that's awesome. So keep doing the work you're doing. And I'm so glad we connected, and I can't wait to learn more about what you do.
Thank you so much, Julia. I really appreciated this today.
That was a great conversation. Thank you, and good luck to you. And take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Next time. See you next time.
Thanks for listening. I hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, review, and share it. I hope you were truly inspired. And for a little more inspiration, don't forget to pick up my book, Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective: 8 Secrets to Serenity and Satisfaction in Your Life and Career. I can't wait to get you love in your life.